Good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. That was Mary. She's doing double duty again today. But we are ready to go. Thank you again for joining us. We are live at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. And today we are, and I'm Edie, and Mary will be up here in a minute. But we are going to be looking at our state insect. That's right. There is a state insect for Oklahoma, and it is the honeybee. I'm not like a big insect person. Don't really care that much for insects. No, don't claim to be. But I am impressed with honeybees.
There's an immense amount of organization.
Yes, I mean, they are so well structured. I remember when Clifford McGahey, you guys may know Clifford, he's a beekeeper, among other things. Clifford's
one of his hats.
Clifford's has a lot of skills, but he is a beekeeper. And he was on and actually brought some of his hive,
like the ones that are on
things
like
on those trays. Yeah. I included one picture of that, but of those kind of things. But anyway, he shared a ton of information about bees that day.
Right.
On Trail Talk, and I can just remember being so impressed and just like in awe. Yes, exactly. Of all the things that bees do, and just, I don't know, just their significance.
It's one of those nature things that just
exactly
where they are able to survive and how they do it.
Exactly. I mean, I've been teaching the animal lesson this year, and one of the things we've been talking about is seed dispersal. And every time I teach it, I'm just reminded that nature doesn't need people.
Right.
Nature doesn't need the human interference.
Overseer, big brother.
Exactly. Because all the things are in place for nature to survive.
Therefore we work.
Yes.
Or have been.
And, in recent years, there have been diseases and natural things happening that threaten the life of the honeybees, and a lot of places hives have died.
There's movies made about it even.
Yes.
It's made news several times, different things like that.
And so that's a case of human interference and having a really negative impact.
We know what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And nature, shocking of all things, knows exactly what it's doing.
Right.
My 6th grade science teacher taught us this phrase: nature always seeks a balance, and it is true. It's accurate, and
we've talked about it here several times.
Exactly. So in 1992, the honeybee became our state insect. The resolution described the importance of the insect, saying the honeybee is critical to crop pollination and plays a vital role in our varied and plentiful food supply. And that's making reference to the agribusiness side of Oklahoma's economy.
Of Oklahoma.
Yeah, and just a role that this insect plays. But they are known for producing a story honey, of course, which is, yes, honey is, I drink honey in my coffee. That is my coffee sweetener. I started that probably 2 years ago, and that is
all you take.
That's all I take. If I don't have honey, I just don't sweeten it, unless for some reason I'm drinking it like a sweetened creamer or something. But most of the time, I don't. I always put honey in it. Sometimes I'll add, I have like a lavender. Oh my goodness, I'm getting off track here. But I love honey. I love to eat honey like every day. I do that. But they build these large nests, and they have this wax from the workers and the colony.
And then inside of it.
Yeah, they have one of the most highly organized societies on Earth. And when it says a colony,
Literally.
every bee has a role and they fulfill that role. From the queen all the way down. So, honeybees are perennial. That means that they, carry on.
Right,
Um,
through the seasons and things.
and a colony of honeybee can have anywhere from 50 to 80,000 individuals. Now, I don't know that the colonies that Clifford has and his honey, production.
Right,
I don't know that there are
They've
that
got
many. I
numbers.
mean, it could be. But there are 3 castes or levels or, members of a honeybee
Right.
colony,
Mhm.
I guess. So you have the worker bees, the drone bees, and the queen bee. She's the largest.
Yes,
There's 1 queen bee per colony.
that's gross.
Yeah. And that means that she is fertile.
Right,
She is the only
Only one.
reproducer
in that whole colony.
in the whole colony. There are a few hundred male or drone bees, and the rest are sterile female or worker bees. And that's the hierarchy within any colony
there.
of bees. So the queen lays the eggs that develop into new workers, drones, or occasionally, not occasionally, periodically.
Periodically, yes.
Yes, a new queen
Mhm.
will be produced by the old queen.
And there's a reason for it
Right,
usually.
yeah. So the queen also emits a complex series of chemical secretions or pheromones that regulate the behavior of the worker bees.
They kind of know what to do by what she's putting off.
Yeah, so the queens and the workers are diploid. That means they have 2 complete sets of chromosomes in their cells. The queens, well, I was gonna, before I get into the royal jelly. So the worker bees, well,
Been
okay,
here for a few
the
months.
drones are the ones that fertilize the queen's eggs.
That's their only purpose.
Right. And then, yeah, that's their only purpose. And the workers keep everything going around the
Right,
hive and
right.
within the colony. Okay, so, the queen bee here, this is a picture of her laying eggs. She is surrounded by worker bees. These are not the drones, okay? These are the worker bees. And, okay, the queen bees, I'm gonna go on to the jelly one. Okay. So these little, openings,
Reservoirs.
yes, in the hive. Okay, these, you can kind of see the outline of a larva there. And that milky looking substance, it's kind of a foamy yogurt-like, so it's thick. That's the royal jelly, okay? The royal jelly is where it feeds the larva.
That's inside of it there.
Yeah, and it becomes, whenever it's fed that, it will become a queen bee. But well, at first, all the larvae get royal jelly. At the very beginning,
Right.
Just for a very short period of time, a couple of days or something. And then after that, the queen is fed royal jelly. And if one of these larvae is going to become a queen, then she will get royal jelly as she is growing. All of the others will become either drones or workers, and the queen decides how many of each of those there are gonna be.
Right.
I mean, you talk about complicated.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So the nurse bees, which are worker bees, their life's work is supplying her with the necessary amino acids that are easy to digest and nutritious at the same time, because she's
Taking that royal liquid jelly stuff for her whole life.
yeah, exactly, because she's just laying eggs. the queen can live up to 7 years, which I
That is
find to
so
be
many.
astounding.
That's a long time.
For
When you
an
look at everybody
insect.
else that's
Yeah.
in this colony, how long their lifespan.
Worker bees only live a few months, sometimes barely 5
Mhm.
weeks.
They're worked to death.
They are, yeah, I mean, they're just constantly doing all
Mhm.
sorts of work around the hive. The, a worker honeybee, spends her let's see, her activities are synchronized with her physiology. She spends the first 3 days of her life,
Mhm.
her few week-long life,
Right.
cleaning these cells
Mhm.
in the
The honeycomb or the colony.
honeycomb, yes, the
Mhm.
honeycomb. And then feeds the older larva a mixture of pollen and honey. That's what they get if they're not eating on the royal jelly.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what you get for second class.
Yeah, she picks up from the storage, this she gets from the storage cells of the hive. So, you know, bees produce honey
Right.
from pollen and
they
nectar and all that stuff that they
Mhm.
collect and yes, consume. The workers start secreting this royal jelly, and from the 6th to the 14th day, she feeds that to the younger larva and a queen larva.
There's
Okay,
one
like,
there,
like
yes.
you mentioned, yeah. And then the 10th day on, the workers' wax secreting glands in the abdomen become active. And they gradually change their behavior from feeding larvae to cell construction.
Right. So their job description change.
Yeah, the honeycomb, I think, is constantly changing
Mhm.
because it is home to these larvae, but it's also the place that the honey is made.
Storage unit and
Yeah,
changes with
I
the
mean,
times
it's a
and-
lot. About the 18th day, the worker may leave the colony occasionally for a few brief orientation flights. Where she might be guarding the hive entrance and inspecting incoming bees, make sure there's not like an invader
ID.
bee. I
Like
know,
this guy.
right?
And your ID, please.
I'm guessing
This is crazy.
that the pheromones that the queen puts off,
May
because
attract.
these are all her offspring,
Right.
essentially,
Right.
they all smell this, they have
Same.
that same,
They can't differentiate from one and the other, but someone different coming in, they can tell that difference.
right, exactly. And then the workers change into foragers where they're bringing nectar, pollen, and water, and that's what they do for the rest of their life. Okay, so this is a honeybee collecting nectar. So they have this nectar collection thing, and it has hairs on it.
A tongue.
And yeah, the tongue, yeah. And the length and diameter of the hairs on the tongue determine how efficiently the nectar can be collected from a flower.
Mhm.
And finding that can help communities plant the right kinds of flowers. So if you want to help propagate bee
Mhm.
uh
Population.
life,
Mhm.
yeah, population, and help them to become more efficient,
Right.
then there are certain kinds of flowers that you can plant
Mhm.
that would help with all of that, which would be a super cool thing to do. Honeybees are always on the move. They visit an average of around 2 million flowers to make 1 pound of honey.
That is so.
2 million flowers. So you can imagine.
They're tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about a place that doesn't have
Have
many
2 million
flowers. Or, no flowers at all.
Or, I mean, if there's that many around, are they sucking it dry? And then even if there is.
Right,
stuff,
how many
is
could
there
they?
Available?
How many could they?
Mhm.
Yes, exactly.
But-
How many flowers are needed?
Yes.
To provide enough sustenance
Mhm.
for
All
a
of them.
colony of
Right.
tens of thousands of bees. I mean, it's a lot to think about because we as people tear down
Mhm.
and
You see
pour
a beehive.
we pour concrete
Mhm.
and we build and we do a lot of things that clear out what nature would have made a place where flowers and other plants are
We
growing.
spray pesticides. I
Right.
mean, there's things in the air, even if there's not being things built at the time.
Right, exactly. And so you know, there's us having another negative
Mhm.
impact,
Mhm.
and bees are pretty dang important,
Mhm.
y'all. So the drones don't do any work. I'm not saying anything specific about this, but I just want you to remember that they're the
They're only there for
male.
the one.
They're the
One
males,
purpose,
and the workers are the females.
only exist there to mate.
Just stating the facts here, people. But they, and if they're not fed by the worker
Right.
bees, they die.
Mhm.
Because they can't even forage for themselves. They exist only to mate with
Yep.
the queen. So, go back here, a couple where she's busy laying eggs. So the drones have already done the mating, and the eggs are ready to be
You can
laid.
see some of these cavities or whatever, they're
Uh-huh.
empty and full.
And they've been covered
Mhm.
with that waxy
Mhm.
secretion
Mhm.
that these worker bees are there. They cover them, they put food in there, though.
Right.
They add the food, the honey, and pollen mixture into
And it's
these,
sealed.
and then they seal it off, and that way the larva has enough food to, and nutrients to help it complete its growing
Right,
process
right,
until
right.
it's ready to come out of there. But this queen will lay 1 to 200 eggs a day, and about 15, I looked this up, LAKH. It's I believe an Indian word that
Uh-huh.
means 100,000. So a queen will lay about 1,500,000. Well, no, that'd be
It's 100,000.
1,500,000.
It's
That's
way-
what 1,500,000.
It's a lot.
1,500,000
Mhm.
eggs in her lifetime, over a
Mm.
7-year
Right,
span.
right.
And when a hive of honeybees prepares to swarm, so they do the nectar. Oh, here's one collecting pollen. I thought that was a cool thing. I mean, that looks like a really gigantic thing. But that's just a little honeybee leg.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
that piece of pollen is not as big as it looks, but
I got a growth.
yeah, but I thought that was a great picture
Yeah, it
of
does.
just give you an idea of how they collect
Mhm.
the pollen. And then, you know,
Where it
how they'll
goes.
bring it back. You can see the other bees around. And so they brought the pollen back to be used in the hive,
Mhm.
mixing it with the honey and the nectar and all those kinds of things. It's just you know,
24/7.
people use the phrase worker bees.
Mhm.
For someone who's
Constantly working.
constantly going, I mean, it's not an exaggeration to use that term.
This poor guy looks frail, doesn't he?
Yes, that's
exactly, sorry,
yeah,
say she.
yeah. So
And,
here's a picture of a swarm. Making reference back to Clifford again, bees, they swarm for a couple of reasons, but the swarming has a purpose as well. It's not just, oh my goodness, we don't know where to live now.
Right.
There is a reason the bees swarm. Okay, so it usually takes place in spring or early summer. It relieves overcrowding in a colony,
Mhm.
and also provides a means of founding new colonies. Prior to a swarm, a large number of queen and drone cells are constructed. Then on a clear day, the old queen leaves the hive with a group of old workers and drones, and leaves young workers, and several new queens who are still in their cells, but approaching the time of emergence. The first queen that hatches becomes the mistress of the parent colony, and she kills the other unhatched queens. So, I mean, that would be a safety net. Of making sure that there are several queens left behind.
In case something happens.
The older queen is either running low on egg cells.
She knows her lifespan is coming to an end.
Or she's becoming too weak
Mhm.
and is not going to be able to carry on.
Right.
So rather than fight it and try to use that royal
She bows
jelly
out gracefully
to extend her life, like, you know, it's
Mhm.
this whole beauty
like a
thing now, the royal
Something
jelly,
like
you
that.
can order it online or something. Or I think I've seen it in stores. People try to prolong their life by using it. The queen bee says, you know what? I've had a good life.
You've had a good run.
I've seen
I've seen it.
literally millions of drones and workers come and go in my life, and I'm ready to move on. Anyway, so, the swarm is the older queen and these older bees leaving, and they're going to go start maybe a new colony. She's probably has one more round of
Right.
eggs left.
Cycle.
That she can, at least one where she can reproduce. But when they swarm, they can be kind of dangerous. It can be a dangerous
Right.
situation, because they're not settled.
Thing.
Yes, and they're not settled. They're kind of agitated.
Uneasy, they don't know. Yeah.
And so, a couple of years ago, someone was leaving work and she called back up here and she said, I think there's some bees swarming. And sure, so I called Clifford. I said, hey, someone saw a bunch of bees out here. And so he drove up, and it took him a while. He drove up and didn't initially see where the swarm had gathered.
Right.
But came back when there weren't as many cars, because we have this walking trail out here, and a lot of people park in our parking lot, and I was concerned about
School
people
getting out and things,
Right.
activity.
And he found them, and so he was able to put on his gear. They use smoke because it calms them down. It makes them, it doesn't like, it's like
More
kind
agreeable.
of a drugging kind of effect without really drugging
Right.
them. They're kind of a little bit sluggish actually, and you can control what they do and get them into a container then and take them. He took them out and added them to his. Yeah. So anyway, it's a useful activity that happens.
They're doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not to come bite and burn and sting everyone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're not aggressive like that. But when they move, they're in a cloud. And a month or so ago, I was driving through Oklahoma City, and I thought, what is that up there? And it was a cloud of bees, and they were just flying. I was like on Southeast 29th Street, kind of Midwest City area. And
how far away could you see it?
I saw it probably a quarter of a mile away.
Really?
Yeah, I could see them. And as I pulled up there, it was kind of thinning out. Most of them had passed, but there were still the random bees that were just flying over the tops of cars and flying on. They were flying south. It was really crazy. But that is called a bee cloud right there. So, okay, so the drones from neighboring hives may combine with a cloud like this, and it could be called a drone cloud. And when the queen approaches, the drones rush to the queen, and they're trying to mate with her in air, because they know that this queen, probably they know this queen is weak,
right?
And she's moving with her, moving to her last place, but. So the male dies after mating, and sometimes the genital part stays in the abdomen of the queen, but either she or some of those worker drones will remove, or worker bees will remove that
later.
And the queen will return to the hive and not leave it again until she grows old and leads a prime swarm, which is that final. So I guess this cloud is not necessarily associated with the swarm. This is maybe a breeding kind of thing that happens. So I missaid that earlier. So this is a breeding time. So the hive has these hexagonal chambers. Chamber was the word, yeah. And made but from the wax, beeswax. Which is beeswax, very cool stuff. Before the wax is used, it's masticated and mixed with secretions to make kind of a plastic-like substance, which is why these things are so structurally sound.
Yes, you can knock them down. I mean, they'll still be there.
Yes,
weeks later.
It's super impressive. But the hive has two types of cells: storage cells for the honey and pollen,
And that's usually the top.
And then brood cells, which is in lower and
Mhm.
central, and that's where the queen lays the eggs
Right.
inside of those. And this is probably a worker bee. I think the queen's abdomen would be longer and more.
Right,
pointed.
it says the worker
Sarah.
cells are small, like the honey cells, but the drone cells are just a little bit longer. And the queen cells, of course, are enormous.
Right, but there aren't gonna always be queen cells.
Once they're used, they can't be used again.
The queen cells,
Mhm.
yeah. So a beehive is an elaborate homeostatic mechanisms that maintains a constant temperature,
Mhm.
water balance, and nutrient level.
Right,
So it is not just well constructed, well organized,
it's constantly in balance.
it is constantly in
Mhm.
balance with all the food, all the nutrients, and as the temperature is kept at a constant level
Mhm.
also. If you guys aren't blown away by nature yet, I mean,
Talk about your smart home.
yeah. When the hive is hot, the worker bees fan their wings to cool it down. When it's short of water, the nurse workers go to the nearest workers and send a signal for water. They are communicating with each other. The latter gives the what water it has and then turns to its neighbors, and the message
Keeps
goes
going.
down the line.
Right, like
It's-
a hotline,
yes, exactly.
a call for help.
When a predator or parasite enters the hive, the worker bees rush forward to defend the colony, and they could die. A beehive works as a marvelous society. Okay, and then there are
Some
these dances that go on. Oh, here's the hive
Those-
that, it's, yeah,
I like trays.
it's just a wooden frame,
Mhm.
and they just use that
They
frame.
fill it.
They attach the side to the sides and then fill it all in, and so you'd have your honey up here at the top, and then your cells for the brood or the larva down there at the bottom. Yeah, so, and then they'll have like the beekeepers will have a box with several trays
Like
in
a file,
it.
like a file.
A
they call it.
filing, yes, exactly. Okay, so here are the dances. There's the round dance and the waggle dance. Okay. So, the round dance is movement in a circle. And that's used to indicate a food source of less than 50 meters from the nest. Okay, so 50 meters, that's like 100 something feet,
Mhm.
less than 150
Right.
feet. The round dance is performed by the scouts when a food source is within a couple of 100 meters of the hive. So further than 50,
Right,
but less than
Right.
200-ish.
Right.
Yeah. So the bee runs one way in a circle, stops, and then runs the other way. And during the dance, the scout passes a sample of the nectar to the other workers so they know the smell and the taste. And then the waggle dance is for the other sources. She waggles her body from side to side in a semicircle, restarting her dance. And she kind of angles herself to give them an idea of what direction to go. But so they have the smell and taste of the nectar,
yeah.
and they know a
What
short
direction
distance,
they're going, or, yeah.
what direction, and how amazing is
is
all of
crazy.
that? I just love it so much. It's so impressive.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah,
We're
and-
not that,
right?
we're not that
Yeah.
civilized.
And so if you watched last week when we decided we're gonna do the swallowtail
Right.
one week and the bees.
Right.
It's because there's so much that they each deserved their own episode
Mhm.
of Trail Talk. So, why are bees important? I thought this would be an important thing to just kind of bring up.
Summarize everything.
Summarize,
Mhm.
yes. So they are essential to the health and prosperity of countless ecosystems. I mean, if you think about flowers,
Mhm.
there are other insects and birds
Use those things.
that use those same flowers. There are also other things. The swallowtail helps with
Mhm.
pollination and things like
It's like a
that.
progression.
And it's a hand in hand,
Mhm.
the balance
Right.
thing I mentioned
Comes into play.
earlier. But fruit trees,
Mhm.
vegetables, grains, things that pollinate, that need pollination, they depend
Mhm.
on these
And going further,
insects.
I mean, oxygen, leaves and, those types of
Right,
things.
right, exactly. Plant life produces
Mhm.
oxygen. We
Mhm.
give, we inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon
Mhm.
dioxide, which the plants breathe in, and then it makes oxygen.
Right.
Plants feed animals that produce meat.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
Which
just,
meat feeds us.
yes, exactly. So, you can see these ecosystems, they are numerous and they are critical
Mhm.
to, life being
Civili-
sustained
Right.
on Earth.
Right. Civilization and survivable. Survival.
Survival,
Right.
exactly. Bees are responsible for pollinating 1 in every 3 bites of food that we eat.
That is crazy. When you think
That-
about how much food and just bites.
Right, 1 out of every 3 bites we eat has been impacted by the
So
pollination.
can you imagine if those
of
bees are gone?
Exactly. This is just kind of driving home how
Mhm.
my 80% of the world's flowering plants are pollinated by bees.
World.
80% of the world's flowering plants. There are 4,000 species of bees. And they're all in decline
Mhm.
right now.
Right.
And 1 in 4 species of bees are at risk of extinction at this point in history. Yes. So,
The
why,
impact that would have.
right? Why do we study things like this? I mean, yes, the honeybee is Oklahoma's state insect.
Right.
It was chosen because of the role it plays.
Mhm. And the impact and.
Exactly. But it's not just in Oklahoma. And this is why we do these deep dives and do these studies, because there's so much more to it.
Right. Just to give you guys education.
Exactly. And just let's learn all we can about plant life, animal life, and insects, and do what we can as humans to
Help
back
them along
off.
a little bit.
Let's back off.
Right.
Let's give them
Yeah.
their space
Yeah.
and give them a chance to
Do their thing.
well, repopulate
Mhm.
and continue to help the world thrive, the natural world to be able to thrive.
Right. Right.
So anyway, I hope you guys learned a lot. It was a great research and study lesson for me. You did?
I'm congratulating
Yeah,
myself over here.
exactly. Next week, we're gonna be looking at our state fruit and vegetable.
There will be no trail talk tomorrow.
Oh, no, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, today is just Wednesday. No trail talk tomorrow. But next week, we've got some good stuff planned out, so be sure and join us. So until then, guys, happy trails.